Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. Verasity on our radar today, VRA on the exchange. Guys, do go check out our other videos as well, covering a multitude of different projects. Before I go to the chart today, I wanted to pull up this article here, which was made literally, I think, about a week ago, or maybe actually 10 days ago. That's how fast time is going. So for those who didn't see it, this is a tokenomics update from Verasity. I'm going to pick out a couple of points here because there's some confusion maybe across the community about how many tokens are actually in circulation and what does this mean for us as holders and the longevity and what's going on here. So some questions perhaps were still unanswered, and I'm sure there's opportunities in the near future for them to come out and elaborate on some of these points. Do remember we have the big New York City event going on this week where a lot of the projects are out and about in those areas. So communication has been down slightly on a lot of projects, and that includes Verasity because they have been quite quiet the last few weeks, which is a bit strange considering Verasity is usually a really nailed down article and content driven project. But they do of course have the VRA esports Twitter channels and all of this now as well. Big focus of course on esports and the whole proof of view mechanism within the streaming platform. So there's an understandability like there slightly. But yeah, this was the article 10 days ago. There haven't been any reactions really beyond this from the project themselves. But yeah, very much a breakdown here. Most of this we already know in terms of the names and everything like this. The circulating supply, 10.3 billion. It's quite a lot, obviously. But we must understand the way that the burning and the way of how the tokens will be used. And especially with the whole aspect of the view to earn, proof of view mechanism and things like this, and the whole verification, the validation aspects of the project and on the tech that it's using. So there's a multitude of things obviously for what it's being used. We're a big advocate of Verasity. I think it's fantastic. It's relatively unique. I would say that perhaps one of the nearest competitors to Verasity may be Theta in the sense of what they do. But of course with all these paintings and everything and the technology advancements that they have with proof of view, it's really a top project in our minds, and it's certainly in our portfolio for some time now. We managed to get ours mainly on KuCoin. We do have a link below in the description if you want to sign up to that if you haven't done so already. KuCoin is actually probably my favorite exchange of the lot. Actually, I know a load of you guys out there use various different ones, as do I. I just find KuCoin has a really good variety on there, and of course one of the key places to obtain Verasity. Now, I wanted to pinpoint here as well. So it says further to the tokens mentioned above, a portion of VRA tokens, almost 2.2 billion in total, are reserved for operational and team requirements. Now, it doesn't go into gigantic detail about this, but predominantly in every project, founders and team members tend to have an allocation of tokens. That's part of it. It's no different, I guess, to some aspects of share mechanisms in companies outside of the crypto sphere. So it's pretty normal, and you usually have something called vesting like cliffs. This means that there's a dedicated time period where team members and indeed sometimes investors at the very early stages cannot sell their tokens in that period of time, otherwise they'll be going against their commitment and their contractual obligation that they went through at the beginning. So there's loads to be considering about how those could be utilized or indeed sold in the future. But for now, of course, the price point as it is with the rest of the market is down quite significantly, as is Verasity. But for sure, what I wanted to point out here was about the maker token, which is interesting. But there's also a mention here about the proof of view foundation tokens will be minted. Okay, so in total 100 billion proof of view foundation tokens will be minted, as previously discussed. Now, this is an old bit of news, to be fair. I remember seeing this towards the end of last year. In fact, it says here on when the article was out, I think I remember reading about that just shortly after that, not quite as it was. So the proof of view will make 90 billion market tokens available. So this is not affecting the circulating supply apparently. But yeah, again, another formulation of the utility and the basis of the proof of view mechanism as it says there. So I think like 100 billion tokens, to be honest, shouldn't like affect the kind of overall circulating supply. So I think over time we'll obviously see the reduction in burning. So I think this is actually really interesting. There's a lot of projects out there that have like even way more tokens than this, and they don't even have the burning mechanisms that Verasity wants to do. But we've got to remember Veracity's position in everything that it's doing. So we talked about the proof of view, we talked about the esports side of things, we talked about institutional levels of proof of view. The whole bot conversation going on at the moment with Twitter. Imagine if they partnered together, that'd be phenomenal. But we already know that they work closely with YouTube and Vimeo and even Google themselves. And obviously Google and YouTube are the same relative company these days. There's some big things ahead. So I think it's really interesting, but what I quite liked about this article is the good little breakdown of where these tokens are going. So in my mind, there's nothing really to worry about. I'm sure there's a couple of questions that people may have on here. I mean, do let us know in the comments below what you think about all this. Do you think this is a good thing, a bad thing? I have read through a lot of the social media chats about this, and some people are like, not necessarily angry, but they're like, what's going on? Like, why are you pumping the circulating supply up so fast? And you know what, actually it's a relatively valid point, because within the sphere of crypto and the ability of these projects to be able to mint and create more circulating supply and things like this obviously affects the price in so many ways. So you've got two avenues of this. You've got, from a retail investor perspective, probably looking at that being a bit annoyed. But if you're a real advocate of the project and you believe in what they're doing, and certainly from the long-term perspective, you might turn a blind eye to that side of things. But I do get why people are maybe slightly frustrated as to why that is happening. So do let us know what you think about that in the comments. But for me, I think it's quite interesting. It is literally I don't necessarily condone like the additional like minting of tokens and then essentially affecting things, because like I said, as an investor, you sort of sat there going, well, hang on a minute, I invested in this project, I believe in the project, but I also want to make some money out of this. And then you're sitting there going like a year or two later that they're just pumping things into essentially print mode like our governments do, right, for decades upon decades. So it's it's going to be interesting, but do go read this article. It's on the Verasity Medium, there's some really interesting points in here that I just thought I'd bring to the attention to say that this is available to read. But yeah, in terms of like the price point and everything, nothing's going to be really majorly affected right now. In fact, let's go into that, because as we said, the whole market is still in a relatively negative format. There is a bit of stabilization going across the board at the moment in the last few days, but I'm still anticipating Bitcoin to be coming down lower. Some people were saying I was mad that it would get around to 17, and it has done. But I have in my mind been thinking that we could potentially come down to that 15 or 12,000 mark. And that's just things that happen in the world. We've still got these negative narratives as well going on everywhere. Here in the UK, the fuel prices are going absolutely bonkers. We're on like £2 a litre now in most petrol stations, which is absolutely ludicrous. Energy prices going up in October. The rates going up all over the place around the world for interest rates and things like this. So you've got to think about all the macro things that go on externally, as well as the market condition and the market projects within themselves as well. So with the Verasity, we're currently floating around this 0.5 cent mark. Okay, this has been something that we've been doing relatively for some time in terms of like the last 10-12 days. And it's also matching a pinpoint back here on the 12th of May, where we did come down to hit that 5 cent mark and it rejected it. In the last couple of weeks, we have seen the lowest points going down under that 0.5 mark, but it always has managed to drag itself above that, which is really interesting. So we're getting this stable 0.005 cent mark as a stability area right now. There's a couple of things I wanted to point out. It's always worth looking back in time. Okay, so Verasity has been all the way up here last year, if you remember, and this was an absolutely phenomenal move, wasn't it? Up towards 10 cents nearly. But what I want to focus on right now is this market here. So we're right here, as we just said. Back here on the 20th of July, it was at 0.008. So this, irrespective of the last 2 weeks or so, or maybe in the month, the last time we were down at this area was back in July last year. If you remember that V shape, we always talk about that. It's very apparent in all the charts. You can always tell which month that is from far out. But the other point I wanted to make is back down here. Now, I'm not suggesting that we're going to go back down to 0.002, but my thoughts and feelings around this are clear. So we have this low point here in July last year. And if we look back in March 2021, you'll see that from these points here at 0.002 up to 0.007, there's a short burst here and not much support at all. So if we're looking at the longevity of this and we pull ourselves back to around where we are today, we haven't obviously dropped back down to that 0.002 area, but I'm concerned in some aspects. Maybe not concerned, but actually an opportunity for accumulation to have some buy orders at these lower areas. I'm not suggesting that it would definitely come down to this area, but for me personally, I would be looking obviously again just under that 5 cent mark, which isn't too far away to be honest. So it's quite possible that could be easily achieved. But I'd also be looking at some other areas as well at critical area stages. So, for example, 0.0037, and I would indeed be having some at lower regions as well. That's not accurate. It's just showing you that potentially we could be coming down there. I'm not saying we're going to go straight down there. It could be a gradual thing, but it's really dependent on Bitcoin's movements. This is why dollar cost averaging is really important when investing. It's certainly something that's worked for me over the last few years, is to accumulate at different positions, because you don't know where the bottom is, you don't know where the top is. You can kind of roughly estimate it. But what you can do is strategically position things to hold some money back. Don't always just go gung-ho-ing because you've just been paid and you go, oh yeah, Veracity is at a brilliant price right now. Think about it. Think about what's good for you and hold some back potentially for potential lower regions. And it does happen quite a lot. It's proven many, many times for me personally. We see here on the week performance at the right hand side here, we're 4% up on the week, which is really good to see a bit of green, but the 6 months and the 3 months are still really, really negative. And that's like I said, many other project assets are exactly the same. So we see this, it's relatively similar across the board. What else can we be looking at to have a bit of positivity towards Veracity's movements? Now, we already mentioned about potential lower regions, and this is dependent on other external factors like Bitcoin and other things going on. But if we look at actually the stability of Veracity, is actually relatively good. You see this period here between the beginning of April and the middle of May. This was the sell-off period. This is what dragged us down even more significantly. But since this area around 10th, 11th of May, we started pulling ourselves back up into a forward trajectory. Not massive, not humongous, but the fact of the matter is there's more buying than there is selling, even though the volumes are really, really low. The RSIs here are showcasing in the 14-day and the 20-day in particular, the key ones that I look at, not as low as they were back here on the 13th of June, and certainly not as low as they were back here on the 12th of May. But what's indicating well is that we're hitting new higher lows each time on these areas of charts and indicators. So this is good. And we also have a bounce off here on the 13th of June on the MACD. This is continuing the, I'll say it bullish, but it's basically a bull move in the sense that it's not negative, it's not straight. We're actually in a good positive momentum here. As I said, the volumes are low, so take it with a pinch of salt, but it's good to see this kind of movement. And the RSIs are sitting nice and sweet on my point that I really love, which is around that 40 mark. moving forward. So between 35 and 40 is always a good grab point for me on a 2-week trading period, i.e. the 14-day. And to look at things on a monthly basis, we're seeing 37. So this is a good touch point for me as well. So that's relatively good news, as I said, in terms of Verasity and everything that's going on. We just need to keep an eye on the market conditions, keep an eye on any further updates from Verasity. As and when they come out, of course, we'll cover them. But like I said, it's a bit quiet at the moment because the market is pretty low. It's hard for people and projects to bring out massive news and massively interesting news because of the way things are. When the market starts picking up, you're probably going to start seeing an influx of information and news coming back in, and excitement and project developments. But we just got to be a bit patient, guys. So be patient, but also anticipate potential lower areas. I can't really see us making gigantic gains anytime soon until the world fixes itself. So guys, let us know what you think about this video in the comments below, and also everything that you feel about Verasity. And what do you think about this article? What do you think about the tokenomics? Do let us know. Guys, I'm going to wrap that up there. I'm going to try and do quite a few videos over this weekend. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you very soon in the next Verasity video. Bye bye.